StarLife DanceHall.com, the internet #1 in dancehall and reggae.
Kabaka Pyramid is standing tall.
Being somebody I consider an avid reader, what 7 books off the top of your head would you recommend? I would say every black man, but every man or woman to read, besides the the Bible, the Torah, besides the spiritual. What would you recommend? 7 books.
7 books. Alright. A major book for me that kickstart my whole spiritual journey still, in terms of being conscious of a spiritual journey, was African Holistic Health by Layla Africa. I would recommend anything for do with His Majesty's autobiographies, Wise Mind of His Imperial Majesty. The philosophy like the philosophy of Marcus Garvey and them thing there. That is an essential book. Leaning towards the deeper side, I think Metoneta Volume 1 by Ra Nefamen will break down many barriers for a lot of people. That is a powerful book still. I have to throw in Temple of Man in there still, That's a swallow the Lubix.
Yeah, man. Start on that
last
night.
Temple of or in Man? Which one?
Temple in Man.
Because in, okay. A Temple in Man is like, that is actually an essay he did when he just came back from Kemet. He was there for 17 years and he did a presentation on his findings. And then they end up publishing that in a book. But like the real grand opus or the work when did completely laid out is Temple of Man, which is a 2-part encyclopedia of information on the Temple of Luxor. Esotericism and Symbol by Shola Del Rubix, essential. His wife Aisha Shola Del Rubix have some powerful books. Opening of the Way. It's an essential book. Opening of the Way.
There's a perception within the Christian community of Jamaica and worldwide, and in sectors of even Rasta, that would say that ancient Egyptian knowledge is paganism or occultism or black magic. How do you reconcile that with your beliefs, and what do you believe the truth of that is? If you can even express that in such a short interview.
Yeah, it is a long reasoning, but it is all of that. But there's nothing wrong with any of that.
Okay.
Because that is what African spirituality is about. I don't really. I think the major world religions is a necessary thing. Is a stage in the evolution of man. That's how I see it. And if you pre-Delubix, it will lean you towards that understanding. Say, the directions where we go is not by coincidence. Christianity and Islam, for me, is a deviation from classical African philosophy. In terms of the indigenous spirituality and that indigenous connection with nature that we find in Africa for thousands of years before we see these other races on the planet starting to emerge and other faculties of the brain starting to evolve. So, once the brain started evolving to a certain point and the cerebral cortex become the main focus, it's like we more get caught up in the mind and more get caught up in an individualistic mentality. So we find these these religions coming up where there is this one person where you focus on, and is that same individualistic consciousness manifesting as a religion. You know, so whether it's Muhammad or whether it's Christ or whether it's Buddha or so, and it's like that communal kind of liberty, you find, say, humanity kind of deviated a bit from it through the focus on these religious efforts, and there's nothing wrong with it, you know. It's just a stage in evolution, you know what I mean? And it's funny because paganism and them thing there, at the core, it's basically a Ivor standing salute. God is manifest and unmanifest at the same time. You know, or what we want to term as God. You know, what we want to call God, which is that underlying energy that is potential and active at the same time. Active in its creative process and potential in its substance, unmanifested substance form. You know what I mean? Or without form. So we know that the creative process, you know, once you kickstart the process of creation, then forms are developed. And these forms come from principles that underlie the evolution of these individual forms. And these principles are what in Kemet we call the netters or the nettery. You know what I mean? And the only way to truly know God or experience God is to experience these principles. You know, because God is really unknowable. You know what I mean? You cannot really have a conscious experience of God because it's beyond even consciousness. You know what I mean? So the principles are what we can be conscious of. So paying homage or paying respect to our principle is respecting that aspect of yourself. You know what I mean? And seeking to become one with that aspect of yourself. So to a Christian who thinks in an individualistic way, who only sees Jesus or the Father or the Holy Spirit as the only manifestations of this God entity, they would see that as worshipping a false God. You know? But it's just which lens you're looking through. You know what I mean? Because to the African that is perfectly normal. To the Hebrew, you know, after certain stages, you know, after certain patterns were developed, that did not become normal. You know what I mean? Because these same Hebrews came out of Egypt, you know, and they were given a kind of new philosophy that they didn't know or understand. You know what I mean? And even a lot of them even wanted to return back to the life that they had in a according to these stories that we hear still, you know, because that is whether or not these things are true is a whole another argument.
Yes.
You know what I mean? But I believe there is
based on your current knowledge. No. I'll continue. I was just wanting to give a disclaimer based on your current understanding.
Correct. Exactly. And that is the only reference point I can use. You know, just my current understanding or overstanding. You know, it's like the Bible, cause even, you know, His Majesty's grandson, Amma Selassie, said, the more we adapt the literal interpretation of the Bible and move away from the symbolic, is the further we step away from the truth, or the less beneficial it becomes. You know what I mean? So it's like these books, the Quran, the Bible, the Bhagavad Gita, these are, you know, books that can guide you towards the truth if you know how to read it the right way. If you can read the symbols, if you can read the analogies, if you can read the parodies and the paradoxes in it. You know what I mean? So I'm not so much caught up with the literal interpretations and the literal whether or not this is historical or so. That not really beneficial to me on my journey. You know, it's more how does this apply to me and at this time, you know?
Alright, so we're gonna kind of switch gears but stay in line with Africa.
True.
In the next 30-40 years, Africa's economy is gonna be booming. Many individual African nations are gonna surpass Italy, Japan, Germany, and things of that nature in the size and the dynamicism of their economies.
Economy.
Yeah, so you're an advocate for the spiritual and physical repatriation to Africa. Describe for our viewers and our listeners this concept.
Only one life and a StarLife.